Hi everyone. I'm Tiffany. I'm currently training to be a doula, and this is my husband Brady. We just recently had our first child, little baby Cash, and we love him to death. We decided to go with an unmedicated birth, and in the process and preparing for that, we wanted to make sure that we were also meeting Brady's needs as a father. So we are going to go through our birth experience with you guys and focus mostly on what the father did to support me and what we kind of did to make sure that Brady was taken care of as well. So I feel like for a lot of fathers and moms in labor, a big thing is, well, what does the dad do? How much can he support? How much should he support? What does the mom actually want, or mom to be want the dad to be doing? And so Brady, as a father to be before we had Cash, um, what was some of your biggest fears about going into labor and having a baby?
One of my biggest fears was not knowing exactly how to handle stuff. Um, Another fear that I had was like the worst case scenarios of like both the safety of the mom and the baby, of Tiffany and Cash, and then just making sure. And another fear that I had was um, not being helpful, just being in the way. And a lot of those just came from just being stressed and scared because I never went through this before. And a lot of it came from outside experiences of people's horror stories saying, yeah, my wife, this happened to my wife and it got really scary. She had to have like emergency surgery, or, we lost the baby's heart rate, or just anything like that just kind of made me kind of nervous and scared.
Was there anything that we did prior to labor and during the process? Well, we'll go through the whole process, but is there anything we did to help calm or get rid of those fears at all?
Yeah, there was a few things we had. Well, meeting with like the midwife and the doula and having our own birth plan set in stone and having all of us on the same page helped out a lot. Then on top of that, having the doula here when you went into labor was really nice and helpful. And then also knowing what you wanted before we even went into labor and stuff like that helped out a lot.
Yeah, so Brady and I talked a lot about the baby and how we wanted to have the baby. He helped me go over my birth plan quite a bit, a lot, and I kept making him read it so that it was exactly how we both wanted it to be. Um, was there anything you wish you would have known or that would have helped that we didn't do?
How fast it actually was gonna go, but no, you can't control
I say that's cheating because we
that.
can't. No one knows how fast labor is gonna go.
But some other things would have been like, oh, counter pressure measures and um, just knowing little things I could have done to help you throughout, like relieve pain and pressure and stuff like that.
All right. So now that we've kind of covered that, we're going to go into when my labor really started, that I consider it starting. So Brady was in class. We're both college students right now. Well,
You
I'm not
were.
anymore. I just graduated. But Brady was in college, and at the time we were both college students. And he was in class when I started labor, and we texted him and said we were in labor. And how did it feel, Brady, that you were in class when I went into labor? What were you thinking?
But first that hit me is like, I need to be out of there. I need to be back home to help Tiffany. And then I even texted you and asked you, do you need me home right now, or do I want to finish my class? And you said to finish class, stay through there, and only had like another half hour to go. And then after I finished class, I called you asking, hey, how are you doing? Do you need me here? Do you want me to go to my tutoring appointment? And I went to my tutoring appointment because you said you were fine, that you were good to go. And then after I came home, you were like, okay, yeah, it's you need to stay here now that you're with me. You just need to be here. but like I was kind of excited and nervous and stressed. It was all kind of like a melting pot of emotions where I didn't know exactly what I wanted, knew how to feel or what I should have felt. Um, it was interesting just because it was like a new experience. It was exciting, but I was still scared out of my mind about having you go into labor.
One thing that I felt was that I felt like Brady thought like once I would go into labor, you correct me if this is wrong, but like it was just gonna start out and it was gonna be like really painful because I remember he wanted to be there and help through the whole thing. But at first, labor really isn't that bad. I mean, it starts out and you can kind of laugh through contractions and talk, and then they just progressively kind of get.
Yeah, no, I didn't.
But
I wasn't afraid of you just being in pain the whole time. But it was just like, I wanted to be with you from the get go, to be able to, like be with you throughout the whole process.
mhm. So my labor started progressing, and I used a lot of things like on the ball. I'd sit on my like yoga ball, or is that what it's
Exercise ball.
called? Exercise ball. And that was really helpful for me. And I don't even know what you were doing at that point.
I don't know. There's because you're bouncing on the ball and rocking around, and at that time, your mom and I were just sitting here talking, just trying to figure everything out. I was calling the dude, trying to get her here as
Um,
quickly as we could. Um, and you actually went through labor pretty quick. You were in labor for about 2 hours, then we headed to the hospital, and then we got turned back to come back home.
well, the
But
hospital was interesting. So the hospital robes, when you go in at first, they are way hard to put on. Remember you trying to snap it up?
oh yeah, I didn't know what I was doing,
So dads, if it takes you a little while to snap up the robe, it's okay.
but yeah. But yeah, no, I'm just trying to think like what we were doing.
I feel like it didn't
Because
really get bad until we got back here.
well, we were doing a little
It was
bit of
pretty good.
counter pressure, just like squeezing your hips and stuff. But other than that, it wasn't very much. It was more to show your mom, like in case if we needed help, this is what you do. But
Yeah. And so we came back from the hospital because we didn't want to walk around in the halls, and we just stayed at our home. And we went and we just laid down in the bed and kind of took a nap for a little while. And Brady he was spooning me, so he was laying behind me. And then when a contraction would come, I think this is what you would do. He would just take his hand and he would push it into my lower back because that seemed to be where the pain was coming from.
yeah, that's exactly what I would do. I just push like um, I'd go until you said it was either you wanted more pressure or you wanted me to back off on the pressure, but I did until you said it was fine. And it was just with the ball in my palm or whatever, however you say it. But yeah,
And from my perspective and my point of view, from the mom, I guess, it was just very comforting to have the love of my life being the one behind me and like supporting me and helping me. I find it very comforting to have Brady holding me in those kind of situations. And so if you're like that and you're going into labor, then you might like to have your husband being the one doing that at that time. Um, there were times where I would come out here and I'd labor on the ball, and it got to a point where Brady was really tired, and at the time he was having stomach problems, and he was hungry, right? Didn't we make you eat?
you guys just kept me fed just to keep me fed, so I didn't pass out or something like that.
Yeah, so we made sure that Brady was always eating because I need him. I needed him more for the mental and emotional support than I did for the actual physical support. I guess would be the best way. I mean, he was there for my mental to keep me like focused, and that was, I think, where he helped me the most because he helped me labor in the bed. But once we got out here, my mom and my doula were the ones that were mostly doing the counter pressure and all that stuff. There were a few times that I would hang around Brady's neck and labor, but
Yeah, you guys. I was also kicked out to go on a walk because of the stress. Because I was kind of freaking out a little bit, so they said, "Hey, go take a walk and come back." So I did, and then they said to go lay down so I could get some rest, but that wasn't gonna happen. So I was just out here with Tiffany, just doing what she was saying. Like I was just here to help her through like this stage of labor that she was in, and just trying to be the support that she needed, and trying to figure out what I could do. And then, like she said, like we're doing the whole slow dance and just kind of swaying, slowly going. And when a contraction would hit, I'd squeeze on her hips, and same on the yoga or on the exercise ball. And when she was doing hands and knees, it would be the same thing. But yeah, that's about it. Like at that time, it was getting progressively worse, and you could tell.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest helps for me. Oh wait, well, no, before that, is so as a mom, it was really hard for me to let Brady go and take his nap and go on his walk because he's he is just like my mental support, and so just like having him in the room was very calming and supporting and very reassuring for me. I felt very safe with him in the room, but um, moms, we got to kind of understand that dads are not, they are Superman, but they need to rest and they need to eat, and we need to make sure they're taken care of because if we have a really long labor, we want them to be able to be the support we need throughout the labor. And so if you make sure they're fed, hydrated, and being able to take rests when they need to, then they can be that support through your whole labor and through the whole, and what's known as like the third part of labor. You have your baby and everything, and they'll be strong through all of that. Then we went to the hospital. By the time we got to the hospital, I was dilated to a 9, and so we were like hoping the baby didn't fall out, basically on the way there. Luckily, we only lived like 2 minutes from the hospital. But when I got out of the car, Brady, what were your feelings when we got to the hospital? You kind of go through. Can you explain the process of when we arrived at the doors and getting me up to the room?
Well, it was even before then. It was when we were leaving the house. It took us a half hour to get you from our front room to the car, into the car, and going to the hospital, just because of how frequent, how consistent the contractions were, and how strong they were. And that was kind of getting scary because it was I don't have you to have the baby in the car, and then we had both to do that, and your mom and me all just trying to focus on you and get you from point A to point B, and you were just focusing on all the pain and stuff like that. And then when we got to the hospital, the doors were locked, so we had to wait for a nurse to come and unlock them for us. So I was kind of frustrated because it's a hospital; the doors should have just been opened. But it was, I don't know, it was hard because you also couldn't walk, and I had to drag you to the front doors and through all the contractions. So we'd have to stop and then squeeze your hips, and then as soon as the contraction stopped, I'd drag you in. It sounds bad, but I tried picking her up the best I could. But it was stressful just because of how quick everything was going. It wasn't, I don't know, it was smooth, like transaction, like a smooth going, but at the same time, it was just so fast. And I was scared out of my mind. I was nervous. I was freaking out, but I was excited all at the same time still. But just, I don't know.
For the most part, you were by my
Yeah.
head. And I think it's kind of a woman's thing that you don't really want men necessarily involved in the birth. Maybe you do, I don't know, but for me, I didn't. I wanted Brady there just for my mental and emotional support, and so he was always like holding my hand and encouraging me. They put me in a jacuzzi tub for a little while to labor, and I think that was one of the times Brady was most supportive, was from the jacuzzi tub on. That is most memorable to me because he um so I was in the tub and they had me over the peanut ball, and he was just up there by my head, and he just kept encouraging me. Like he was just saying, this is what you wanted, you can do this, you're strong enough, I love you. I mean, you tell it a little bit better because my brain's all foggy.
So at the point she was in the tub, it was probably one of the hardest points because that's when you could tell how much pain she was in. And for those who are going to be dads to be, you need to be ready for this pain. Like you can't describe it. It's just horrible watching your wife or your significant other going through it, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. It's horrible, honestly. Like Tiff was in pain and she was grinding her teeth and she was gritting and screaming, and there's nothing I could do except for just be there to hold her hand and tell her how much I love her and that she could do it, being that support that she needed. And then I remember something from our birthing class that we took was breathing. You have to have like a good breathing exercise or rhythm going. And so we like when she's like, okay, here comes another contraction. I try to get in her head saying, hey Tiff, okay, take a deep breath. Let's go. Come on, deep breath. Breathe with me. And then, if she could do that, the contraction wouldn't be near as horrible. It would be the best way to say it. But it was still her, and she'd scream, and I remember you saying quite a few times, "I can't do this. Just make it stop." It. That we were past the point of no return, and we even said that an unmedicated birth, so we had to stick with it. And it was hard just because I wanted to do something. I wanted to take the pain away. But at the same time, it was like amazing to see you go through this and push through it. It's one of the worst, but one of the most incredible moments just because you can see how the birthing process is going. But yeah, it was a crazy 30 minutes you were in there.
And moms, so dads understand, like, when you're in labor, a mom's brain is kind of warped. They don't know how long they're doing anything. Sometimes it feels like a really long time, and sometimes it feels like it was like a part of labor took like 10 minutes. But yeah, I mean, that was very supportive because I remember telling Brady, I can't do this. And what else did I say? I can't do this. I
just make it stop.
Just make it stop. And he would just encourage me. He'd say, we're almost there. You're almost there. When I kept saying, make it stop, make it stop. And when he said it, when I would tell him I can't do it, I mean, he was almost kind of firm and stern, and he would just be like, yes, you can. Like, there's no question about it. And so I felt like this kind of like whipped puppy, and I'm like, no, I can't. No, I can't. He was just really good about making sure I did that. And then once we went back in the room where I actually gave birth, I feel like I don't really know where you went because I remember my mom was there when I actually gave birth, but I don't really. Were you still by my head?
Yeah, so I sit on one of the rolly chairs that the doctor gets to sit on. I sit right there next to your head, and it was, I don't know, it's hard to explain. Like, I was just right up next to you, right next to your head, where I could like hold you and like hold your hand and kiss you if I wanted to. Just like I was right up there next to your head because
I remember that now. Yeah, you were like.
I was like, yeah, pretty close. And I remember like your nails would be digging into like my shoulders, and you'd be yelling and screaming, and your mom was helping like on the other side of you, like on your back, pushing and stuff like that. And so was the doula. The doula's helping doing the, what is it? You push on the knees and you get the.
Oh yeah.
Crazy just because you so close to giving birth, and you just wanted the midwife saying, "Hey, you need to stop pushing." You try, but your body was just doing its job and getting the baby out, which is what it was supposed to do. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it was just hard because there's nothing I could do besides just be there for you.
And honestly, guys, that's what well, for me anyways, that's all I wanted. I just wanted Brady's support. I feel like birthing is something that should be done between women. Well, it's not like it should be done. It can be however you want. But for me personally, I wanted it to be women in the room. And so I went with a midwife, like Brady's mentioned. And I told Brady actually that I did not want him from the waist down. I didn't want him to see any of that stuff that goes on with birth and everything. And I don't think he ever was. I mean, he was right where I wanted him, right where I needed him. And I think communication is a big part of that. talk with your partner or your spouse and make it you want from them, moms and dads. Make sure that you are asking questions you have and that you are making it clear of what you are comfortable doing and what you are not comfortable doing. Because if you're not comfortable doing something and you try to do it, you may make labor harder on your wife. So make sure that you are definitely communicating. Before we quit, Brady, what is there anything you wish you would have known before all of labor and the baby? And then do you have any special advice for dads to be?
Yeah. So quickly, the special advice um, is you have to. Your mouth. You're your wife's mouthpiece. You're the one who's saying yeah, do this and don't do this, and this is what we want. This is what we agreed to. Because like Tiff said, her mind was warped. Like she had all these different chemicals going through her from like
Just
oxytocin and just
natural.
natural adrenaline, everything like that. There was no drugs involved. So just all this natural chemicals and things going through her, and she had so much pain, the adrenaline and stuff like that. But she had no idea what was going on in terms of like how much time has passed and who was doing what, and she was focused on her, which is what was important. She was focused on the baby and on herself. But you need to be the one the dads need to be the one who says, yeah, we need to do this. This is what we agreed on. We agreed on, for example, I don't know how many times I said after Cash came out was we were doing the delayed cord clamping. We were waiting for this, and the nurse was like, yeah, okay. And then I was like, hey, did I mention that? I just kept saying it and going through it in my head because I'd forget too. But it was also because Tiff needed me to do that. We had this whole list and we gave it to the midwife and the nurses and everybody, so everybody was on the same page. But it is also your call. Like something happens, you have to be the one that makes that decision. You need to talk about everything, and you have to be that mouthpiece. And it's scary, but at the same time, it is so important. And then some things I wish I would have known were some probably more counter pressure methods. Um, that and just I wish I could have been more prepared for uh, I don't want to say the traumatization, but it was kind of
The
traumatizing. The
emotional strain.
emotional strain, yes, of watching Tiff be in pain. I mean, it's undescribable. It's horrible, but it's amazing to see how strong your partner or your wife or whoever may be, how strong they really are. But yeah, that would be the one thing I would say and add on is it's just you can't ever be fully prepared, but you just have to be ready for it. You have to be kind of like on the ball. You have to let let your decisions come as they come, and let things roll how they go.
Yeah, you definitely can never be like 100% prepared for labor because there's a lot of things about labor that just aren't known. You don't know exactly when you're going to start unless you're having an induction or a scheduled cesarean. Um, but you don't know how any of that will go. But I think the best thing to do is to prepare as well as you can. Make sure you study up on the different interventions. And so if you're faced with one of those questions, make sure that you know everything about it and that your spouse knows how you feel. Because that is very important because moms, you really are just kind of in a crazy place in your brain. The time is just it's really warped and it's crazy. And so dads are able to really kind of be that mouthpiece and to be like, make sure this is done. She said, don't do that. We're not okay with that. That's really dads. You really need to make sure you can take that role so that moms can focus on what they need to be doing and um, really just communicate and be prepared. Make sure you have a birth plan. Make sure you've gone over it with your healthcare provider. Make sure you've gone over it with your spouse. If you have a doula, make sure that you've gone over it with your doula and that she is prepared. That's one thing I wish I would have done more. I wish I would have been a little more prepared with my doula. um, communicated and done a little bit more there. One last thing I do have is dads, do not share terror stories that you hear with your wife. Everything you tell her needs to be very supportive and positive, because if you're filling her brain with negative thoughts, then the birth experience is most likely going to follow her thoughts. So if you're just saying this is going to be painful, but you can do it, that's still like saying, oh my goodness, this is going to take all I've got. It's really, there's a lot of mind over matter that goes into birth. And that's something I wish I would have known a little bit more about before I went into labor. There's definitely a lot of things I would have changed, which I'll talk more about those in future videos. And then there was one last thing I wanted to say. Oh, yes. So Brady talked about how painful it was for me and how there was nothing he can do about it. That's another thing that I will definitely address in another video, is there are ways to manage the pain mentally, um, that you can do to help. That's not just counter pressure. There's a lot more things you can do. And I didn't quite understand that fully until after I had Cash. And so now that I know it, I definitely want to share it with everybody else. And fathers, I guess next time Brady will share his experience in a few years.
Yeah.
When I'm more mentally prepared, because birth doesn't need to be painful and it doesn't need to be traumatizing. There are other ways without using interventions and drugs that can do that. And it definitely helps with recovery time. But I think we'll stop there for now. Maybe sometime we'll talk about postpartum care, but this is just about the labor and delivery. And we hope that dads find this helpful and that moms find this helpful. And we definitely just want to be there to help anybody. If you have any questions, please leave a comment below and we'll do our best to answer any questions we have. And we'll try to get in touch with you through email or something as well. So have a good pregnancy and birth.